Code Geass is in an odd place as a series. It has been ever since it ended in 2008. It's a 50-episode story with complete themes, a distinct endpoint, and far too much popularity to just let die. It was kept alive in no small part by Akito the Exiled, an OVA series set in the same world, only tangentially related to the plot of the 50-episode mecha anime that it inherited the legacy of, with the protagonist of Code Geass, Lelouch, only making a cameo appearance. Until, of course, the 2019 revival movie. This is the part of the video essay where I am supposed to go on a tangent about how the story is over and continuing it is an act of puppeteering a corpse as disrespectful as it is hollow, a complete disservice to the show and its protagonist, but that is not my opinion in the slightest. Code Geass was undead since before its finale, in a very odd state that's difficult to explain, but I'll try my best. Code Geass is a Studio Sunrise production, which of course means it's a mecha anime. It is largely about mecha warfare within the context of a Japanese resistance movement, fighting back against a hypothetical British Empire that got completely out of hand during a futuristic world war. Long live Britannia. But there's also this stuff where a bunch of people have superpowers called Geass, and it's more a fantasy story with mechas in it than a mecha story. The protagonist, Lelouch, is a Britannian noble who gains a Geass ability. His ability lets him give anyone he looks in the eye an absolute order they must carry out. If he tells them to betray their comrades, they will. If he asks for their secrets, they will reveal all of them without any resistance. Problem being, he can only do this once per person. He uses this to become a masked superhero named Zero, who leads the Japanese resistance. And the whole 50-episode affair is a giant character study of mostly him, as he deals with his own gray morality before eventually saving the world by becoming a villain the whole world can unite against and letting himself be killed by a more idealistic group of revolutionaries. The problem is that the story was rushed. It needed 3 seasons, but got 2. Season 1 is paced perfectly, as was the first half of Season 2, but 10 episodes in the final stretch have about 35 episodes of plot contained within them, the show only returning to a decent pace for the last 4. The rest is a slippery mess of stuff that needs to happen, tied together inorganically with way too much happening in an incredibly short period of in-universe time. Though, because the final arc is so well handled, it's not as if the story was ruined, but it was marred. The plot has a lot of interesting themes, and Lelouch is an interesting character, but any particularly compelling aspects of its theming didn't make it out unscathed. The story's finale felt great, but more so in a look how far we came sort of way, the headier aspects of the show being lost in the mad dash to put everything to rest. Lelouch's death was meaningful because of aesthetic reasons, such as poetry, or just how conclusive it felt. But without actively rewatching the show, I couldn't tell you what it, meant in terms of the morals of the story. All that is to say that when it was announced that there was going to be a sequel movie released a decade later and that it would just bring Lelouch back from the dead, most people were pretty okay with it. Lelouch as a vehicle for ultra-meaningful insight into the human condition is a wave that crested well before the original series ended. It is no longer part of Code Geass's identity. What is left is Lelouch as a superhero. The last arc before the pacing started to falter was the China arc, a storyline with truly fanfiction-esque energy. It's just about Lelouch finding a random conflict and working with all of his super friends to save the day, and if I'm going to be frank here, that is where the story peaked. Lelouch was just a little too good at being a superhero character. The overall 50-episode story's ambitions were far greater than this, but he's just a little too well suited to just being plopped into a random military conflict alongside his quirky cast of sidekicks and just, saving the day. Despite everything that was happening around that, this is where all of the gears spun together with the least friction, and clearly the creators recognize this because the movie is basically the exact same thing. Lelouch is brought back from the dead, there is a war going on with an obvious bad guy, he does his maniacal theater kid shtick and comes up with a strategy to stop the obvious bad guy, he gets the girl, roll credits. The whole thing has an almost Marvel-esque energy to it. People are quipping even more than usual. Lelouch goes on this speech about how he's just doing one last job. Basically, every lore character is present and getting along with one another. The whole thing is scattered with continuity jokes that feel straight from a Tumblr webcomic. It should, by all accounts, be cheesy to a fault, but it feels more like the story is being honest with itself, aware of where it stands. The truth is that Code Geass was always absurdly hokey, the characters goofy, the dialogue so often corny, and all of this just feels so natural as a result. Strip away the sophistry from the first 2 seasons, and this is what was always there. I understand that this sounds like a backhanded compliment, like I'm saying that every last bit of philosophical, thoughtful writing the story had, every piece of commentary on the nature of violence and the importance of individuality, wound up getting outshone by just how fun and goofy the protagonist is, and yeah, I am saying that, but it's not because I feel like the intellectual aspects of Code Geass were particularly bad. At times they were truly great, but Lelouch as a character and all of the stylish aesthetic stuff around him, it's just that good. He transcends his own story, not merely a vehicle for some particular narrative's moral message, but an archetypal character that exists as his own entity. To say that we should stop making Code Geass stories, to say that we should stop making stories starring Lelouch in specific, is like saying that we should stop making Batman stories. It fundamentally misunderstands what Lelouch is as a character. Of course they brought him back from the dead. Anything else would be a disservice. After the credits rolled on Lelouch's theatrical showstopper, we are given a post-credit scene in true superhero movie fashion. In it, we learn that Lelouch and his love interest are out dressing like vampires, finding superpowered teenagers and offering to become their mentors. And my god, is that not just the tropiest, coolest, most perfect place to take these characters? And so here we are, 5 years after the movie, and we finally have Rose of Recapture, a new Code Geass story starring 2 new protagonists, one of whom is a true inheritor of Lelouch's ethos, Sakuya Sumeragi. She is theatrical, cocky, scheming, and kind of goofy. She allows the creators to strut their stuff and do what they do best. The plot, as given through ham-fisted exposition, involves the most unimaginative villain group you could think of. They call themselves New Britannia, introduced with barely more of an explanation than the First Order. It's a simple excuse to bring us back to something familiar and functional, a group of terrible people for the protagonist to righteously pummel into the ground. And we know from trailers that pretty soon, Lelouch will show up, likely acting as a sort of guide to our new fledgling protagonist. A passing of the torch in some ways. It couldn't be more generic, but in an odd way, this brings it its strength. Some things just work best like that. Headier, more intellectual aspects of writing are often regarded as the most important, but while I don't doubt Rose of Recapture will have its fair share of that stuff, it is the aesthetic and stylistic elements of these stories that draw me to them, leave me wanting more, and I think it'd be sad to deny the artistry that goes into that. Code Geass is a masterpiece, I feel, and in a way that is nigh infinitely expandable so long as the authors can come up with fresh ideas. It's a story that doesn't need to end anytime soon, and I really hope it doesn't. As always, I want to give a thank you to my patrons, particularly Bellman, Carolyn Vig, and Love Your Content. But rather than plugging my own content at the end of this video, I want to plug something a bit more important. My Twitter mutual, Zuki Fox Girl, will be doing a charity stream with a goal of raising $1,000 for the American Cancer Society, and I'm going to let her explain it.
I am Suki Fox Girl, the Hot Springs Fox. As many of you know, I am going to be doing a charity stream on So I am doing a charity stream on June 30th, starting at 9 a.m. CST. And what charity are we doing exactly? We are going to be doing the American Cancer Foundation. As a lot of you know, I have been struggling a lot with knowing that my mother has cancer. I found out about a month ago that she had throat cancer. Just recently, only about a week or 2 ago, she had it removed in her throat. Now, most of the cancer is gone, but it is still in her lungs. The cancer my mother had was a stage 4 cancer, and it was very touch and go, very, very terrifying. And it made me realize that there is a lot of things that I could do a charity towards, but this one is very near and dear to my heart. My mother isn't fully over her cancer, and I don't know if she ever will be, with her health being the way it is. But I wanted to do this charity in honor for her. So we will be starting a 12-hour charity stream on next Sunday, June 30th, starting at 9 a.m. CST, going until 9 p.m. CST. For every $100, I will have a tier thing of different things that I will be doing, anywhere from emotes to art to even a karaoke stream, free redeems and things like that. And the biggest thing is that the person who donates the most money will get art with me. It'll be me and that person, and I will be posting it absolutely everywhere. So I hope to see you guys then. I hope to see everybody there having fun. We'll make a lot of jokes, just play some games, chill with everyone, and just have a blast. So I hope to see you guys then. I hope to see you there. I love you guys. You guys are amazing. Thank you. See you then. Bye.
If I can figure out how to make this video a fundraiser, I'm going to try to do the same. Cancer is one of the biggest blights on our species, and the American Cancer Society does a ton to help find a cure and assist patients. But either way, make sure to check out her stream on the 30th of June and show her some support. Her Twitch will be linked in the description.